Welcome to all to the launch of Innovation Month 2014. My name's Paul Trotman. I head up the area within the Department of Industry that looks after innovation policy. Today we meet on Aboriginal land, the land of the Ngunnawal people. We celebrate Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people's continuing care for the country. Let us work together to improve economic and social opportunities for Australia's first people. I'd like to thank everyone for attending, and I'd especially like to thank NICTA for this wonderful venue and allowing us to meet here today. Innovation Month 2014 is the fourth APS Innovation Showcase event to run, and the second such event to run for the whole month, expanding from Innovation Week in 2012. It's the APS's chance to explore the challenges we face and promote the good work we've done in innovation. Innovation Month 2014 is the work of the Public Sector Innovation Network, led by the Department of Industry. So the Public Sector Innovation Network is a cross-agency group focused on sharing the stories of public sector innovation. It consists of over 1,400 members from federal, state, territory and local government, as well as academic and private sectors. So I would like to encourage you all here today, if you haven't already, to join the network and encourage your colleagues to do so as well. The APS is full of innovative people with great ideas and stories to share. And Innovation Month is all about sharing those ideas, and some of those ideas you'll be hearing a little bit more about in a short while. And we'll also be hearing from Glenys Beachamp, Secretary of the Industry Department. She'll tell us a little bit more about the state of innovation today and its importance tomorrow. Later we'll hear from a number of speakers, but we'll also have a short video presentation on some of the innovations that are happening around the APS today. And finally we'll close proceedings with some refreshments, so I trust you'll all be able to stay for those. So without further ado, it's my pleasure to introduce Glenys Beachamp, the Secretary of the Department of Industry.
Thanks, Paul, and it's great to see so many of you here on a nice, warm, balmy day, Canberra balmy day. I should also acknowledge the traditional owners, the Ngunnawal people, the land on which we meet, and pay my respects to elders past and present, and particularly given that it's also NAIDOC week this week too, so if I can encourage people to participate in those sorts of activities. Right, okay, my apologies. Thank you. And thanks, Paul. I'm absolutely delighted to be here to be launching Innovation Month, and it is particularly important for us in the APS not only to celebrate the innovative things that we do as a service, but look to the future in terms of what more we can do. So before I'll just talk a little bit about the topic of public sector innovation more broadly, which is a subject that is important to me personally on a number of different levels, obviously as Secretary of the Department, but also a department that is to promote and facilitate innovation, but also with my other hat on in terms of being the IPA ACT President, and part of that role is about professionalising what we do as public servants, but also looking at innovation with our industry and non-government partners as well. Innovation is a word that's absolutely bandied around left, right and centre, and at times there's lots of confusion as to what it might mean. And it's important to understand and recognise what we do in an innovation sense as well. And I think particularly when we're talking about in our portfolio research, science, innovation, it's very hard to put your finger on it and say, well, this is the outcome or the impact that we do want to achieve by innovating. It's also fair to ask that aren't we already innovating? And isn't the public service already changing, innovating to respond to a changing world? We'll see a little later on in our video, the answer's pretty clear. And it's probably something that we don't celebrate as public servants, and we should be proud of the long history of innovation that we do indeed have. In the video you'll see some of the great examples from across the public service, some smaller ones and some larger, all but worthwhile. But while the core of innovation and the generation and application of new ideas remains the same, the process of innovation is one that is continually evolving as we learn more about it and about the creative process. And innovation is not something you can set and forget. It's something that we need to absolutely embed in the way we work. And it shouldn't be just seen as an add-on to our normal processes and thinking, not just in the policy area, but also in the service delivery, program management and regulatory area. And you'd see in terms of the deregulation agenda, I think the government in particular is looking at us to look at more innovative ways to solving problems rather than just coming up with regulatory responses. I'd like to share some of the current experiences of my own department, which is in the process of a number of major initiatives that will change the way we do business. Simplifying and streamlining are two principles guiding the development of our new single business service, which we launched on the 1st of July, which will provide businesses with streamlined access to industry information and programs. This will be a big shift and one that I hope will strengthen our engagement with industry and consequently to help business help themselves, reduce their costs and thrive. This is all in the context of this government's new industry policy. And one of the things that I've been articulating and conveying to all staff is rather than just being passive participants in a process, that we will become more facilitators and problem solvers for small and medium enterprises. And I think in our department we had 115 different discretionary programs, and we're down to a much smaller number now. And in a sense, there's a reason for being in terms of SMEs' engagement with us, not just that we've got pots of money at the end of a process, but that we actually do provide a service and should be proud to be offering those services around being problem solvers for SMEs. On the service level, we've got the Smart Form solution, which allow businesses to complete, save and submit government forms anytime, anywhere, and on any device. This whole of government service makes it easier for business to interact with government online and reduces government turnaround time and cost to process forms. And I should give a plug to the team at business.gov.au who has developed a suite of free business planning apps for iPad and Android to help Australian business owners develop business plans, marketing and emergency management plans. And when you do go through this website, which I hope you will absolutely download onto your app, the three apps, My Business Plan, Market My Biz and My Biz Shield, guide business owners through the process of developing plans tailored to their business. And these apps that businesses can literally take to the bank and show their business plans to their bank manager as well. These initiatives will also help illustrate an important thing about innovation, that we also need to share ideas across the service, and I think this is particularly important, and indeed this forum provides an opportunity for us to do that. Speeding up the adoption of promising innovations across the service is something that can be aided by platforms such as Innovation Month or the Department of Finance's GovShare. We need to be open about the new initiatives that work. In this way, we can build on these practical innovations and achieve more. I guess from an APS point of view, GovShare is just one of the many innovations that are happening right now in the APS, and you'd see the range of things that are just happening in Innovation Month, showcasing many of the agencies that are here today in terms of what's happening. For example, the Department of Education's Policy Toolkit, the Australian Bureau of Stats Run That Town app, and the Department of Finance's National Collaboration Framework are just some of the great initiatives we'll be hearing about in the upcoming video. I'd also like to recognise Innovation Month itself as an important cross-agency collaborative initiative. It is one that shows that what can be done by staff from agencies joining together and trying new things. And I think whilst a lot of commentators do talk about public service, and perhaps there might be too many public servants, that's not many times you get an opportunity to celebrate some of the good things we're actually doing. One of the most valuable things we can do is absolutely highlight the innovations that are already happening. And so if you are working on something that you think's innovative, please let us know. And I think from an APS point of view, and having read most of the capability reviews that the Australian Public Service Commission undertook of a number of agencies, including my predecessor agencies, one of the things that obviously requires development and is an area of a further focus is absolutely agencies being innovative. And there's not many agencies that get a gold star, although there is an acknowledgement of some of the things they actually do. And I think it's more about the culture and, as I said earlier, embedding innovation into what we do all the time. It is clear that innovation is happening and in lots of different ways across different agencies. Do we need to do anything more? It's important that we continue the search for better ways of doing things, I guess for a number of reasons. Obviously to meet the needs of the government of the day and reduce costs to government services and their delivery, and we would have seen Minister Cormann's focus on smaller government, so encourage people to read that. But what does that mean in terms of how we do business going forward? I think it's always important in terms of the organisational culture that we are looking for new ways to do business, and I guess not least of all, the reason why we do need to innovate is so we can meet the ongoing needs of the Australian community to deliver a professional and capable public service and not play catch up. I think we absolutely need to be out there leading innovation to respond to not just the Australian community's needs now, but also for tomorrow. And I think we've certainly got the wherewithal to do that. For the public service to be effective and capable, every agency needs to be good at innovative delivery. There are a few challenges, and changing the way that we do business is not always easy. And innovation requires us to change our habits, our routines, our behaviours. It requires us to introduce changes that affect our stakeholders and clients. This isn't always a comfortable process, and sometimes there will be resistance, and sometimes for very good reason. And in that context about resistance, I think there's a bunch of secretaries that met with their Canadian colleagues about 6 months ago, and one of the Canadians who was trying to use social media as a platform for innovation, and he was reported in the paper on the day he was giving the presentation to the Australians. He said that hierarchy is the biggest barrier to innovation, and so we should be encouraging people at the coalface and people that are further down the organisation and perhaps younger than I to be looking at new ways of doing business. And I know when things do get to me or when they do get to your minister, they're pretty sanitised. So let's encourage and empower our staff to be much more innovative and embrace the innovations and ideas that people may come up with. And I think risk is one of the first things that comes to mind for many. And the public service is often described as risk averse. Yet risk is an intrinsic part of innovation, and I think we have to provide, particularly at the SES level and other levels, I guess a culture of embracing risk and managing risk. And I don't know that's going to be a hard thing to convince governments and to convince the whole of the APS, particularly when we've got a number of royal commissions looking at people, processes and systems, particularly, for example, the Home Insulation Program will be looking at how did the Australian Public Service manage the risks we were confronted with when we were looking at innovative service delivery options to manage the GFC. So watch this space, I think, in terms of the implications for the Commonwealth and how we do business. So risk is, and from a personal point of view, is pretty tough in terms of how we manage it across our organisations, and I'd be interested to hear if anyone has got a fantastic template and a good example of how we absolutely do manage risk. I guess one of the other challenges is the need for efficiency, and it's our responsibility as public servants to be as efficient as we possibly can, and cutting costs is a very real reason why we should be and needing to be innovative. But innovation in that process, that by definition is inefficient. Any new idea or experiment may not work. Yet if we only do what we know works now, and if we're only making what we do more efficient, that is sort of tweaking at the edges, we'll soon be left with a very small repertoire of solutions unsuited to a world that is continually changing. And this tension is something that Professor Jason Potts from RMIT has referred to for the public service as the curious problem of too much efficiency and not enough waste and failure. Not too sure if the government would accept that though. This is a challenge absolutely shared by industry as well, and businesses too have to look to the future to identify new products and services or business models, and successful business startups working on ideas even when they may not fit smoothly with their current revenue streams. And looking at a few of my staff here, and I keep talking about having a Google type environment in the industry department, and part of that Google type environment is absolutely providing a percentage of people's time for downtime in a work sense, but looking for new ideas, talking about and sharing possible ways of doing business. So hopefully we can get to a point in time where our organisations are absolutely encouraging and embracing the working environment to toss around some new ideas and new ways of doing things. A third set of challenges is something that I'll refer to more broadly as constraints. Audits, reporting obligations and existing priorities. The list can be as long as we might make it. In the public sector it can feel like there are a myriad of reasons why innovation is too hard or not our job, and just reflecting on 9 months into this portfolio and being landed with an ANAO report on a particularly innovative program within our portfolio that only takes one tiny breach to bring into question the way we manage programs and the innovations that we've got. So we do absolutely have to look beyond those ANAO reports and look at, well, okay, what's the impact we're having, rather than necessarily being hung up on processes and the like. So it is hard when we've got that backdrop behind us, but there is particularly ways of working out on the future. And in this particular case, I'm looking forward to a workshop with the ANAO where we might better manage our programs and embrace risk, and how much appetite there might be from the ANAO to encourage that. And if we look at industry, we also find similar themes. A recent study from the University of Queensland and Ernst & Young provides us with some interesting insights. This study looked at productivity in the oil and gas industry and the experiences of different firms, and it found that innovation was one of the key drivers of productivity. And most interestingly, the study noted that novel innovators are those firms who have implemented solutions that are entirely new to the industry. When they were asked to cite barriers to their success, constraints were rarely mentioned at all. In other words, if we focus on why we cannot innovate, we won't innovate. And there is truth to the sentiment that we need to focus on opportunities. And I should say in this context, I think part of the Prime Minister's competitiveness agenda, the development of it that he announced in December last year, I think innovation will be at the core of that, and how we absolutely encourage the environment for more innovation, because it does directly impact on productivity, growth and jobs. So overcoming these challenges, so how can we in the public service continue to identify and pursue efficiencies at the same time as trying to be different and have unproven experiments? How can we focus on opportunities rather than reasons not to? We can look to approaches like design thinking and behavioural insights, which offer us better ways of testing and trying new things in small ways. Prototyping, for instance, can allow us to develop ideas and to seek feedback before we commit significant resources. A number of agencies are using prototyping and design principles to better test and strengthen new proposals. And the Secretary's Board has absolutely been focusing on innovation and what we might do, and I think the focus is now on looking at the continuous improvement innovation being embedded in portfolio agencies. In addition, simply making ideas visual can also help crystallise the strengths and weaknesses of an approach in a way that a written business case may never do. I note the APS Policy Visualisation Network has done some good work in looking at how ideas and concepts can be made visual to help strengthen our analysis, our advice, our communications. These and other methods and tools can help make experimenting safer and lessen the chance of harmful, unintended consequences. Approaches such as design thinking and behavioural economics can help ensure that our empathy and sense of real-world impacts is not drowned out by bureaucratic processes and the idealised abstractions that policy making can sometimes fall prey to. And I should say on the Secretary's forward agenda, I think we're absolutely looking at innovation and behavioural economics and nudge finance and other things that we can do more broadly across government, and that's a future agenda item which myself, PM&C, Finance and others will be leading. I'd like to also take a moment to consider what we have already achieved, and considerable work has already been done to better help us understand, encourage and enable innovation in the public sector. For instance, there's been the report Empowering Change, which set out the framework for APS innovation, and it was followed by the Innovation Action Plan, which was endorsed by myself and all the other secretaries on the Secretary's Board, and that absolutely gives us the mandate, and I think we're looking more at encouragement for agencies to innovate. And there's ongoing international engagement with our colleagues in other countries, sharing experiences and lessons, of which I spoke about a little earlier. There is engagement with our colleagues in the state and territory public services, who are also seeking to develop new strategies and solutions. Then there is the work of individual agencies to mature their own systems and processes for fostering new ideas, for selecting the best and most appropriate, and for implementing them. And then, of course, there's the Public Sector Innovation Toolkit and the Innovation Showcase, which provides guidance and case studies for officers seeking to innovate. And my department will continue to develop the toolkit and capture case studies of innovation across the service. And these are just some of the many steps already taken to position the Australian Public Service for innovation. And so Innovation Month is a great opportunity for us to consider how we do even more embed innovation as a core capability and part of our professional standards. It's a chance for us to help develop our skills by learning and trying different techniques such as design thinking. It's an opportunity for us to work more closely across portfolios and talk about issues that cut across our agencies, and whilst you can have all the toolkits and frameworks and other things in place, I think it's more important to have those discussions and face-to-face opportunities and web chats and other things that we should be participating in. It's a time when we can revisit what we do now and how we work and consider how we can get better outcomes. And it's also an occasion for us to think about what we can do less of. And I guess in this context and the focus on smaller government, I think no longer can we sort of tweak at the edges for efficiency dividends and the like. I think all of our agencies are looking for transformational change, and I think we have to embrace that, but also then looking at brand new ways of doing business. And I think the community also have an appetite for different ways of doing business as well. And it might be a chance to consider what roadblocks or barriers can be removed and which of our own processes are getting in the way, and whether indeed hierarchy is one of those constraints. And what are the things where if we stop doing them or we removed ourselves, others might be able to better get results. And I think that's certainly an expectation of this government. Can others do it more effectively or more efficiently than ourselves, and how might we leverage off that? And I mentioned we might think about risk and collaborate better to mitigate those risks, and convince the ANAO and others about the appetite for risk and how we might manage that in the future. Needless to say, I think that Innovation Month is a great initiative. It is something that has the support of most senior leadership across the APS, but is driven by staff working across agencies to connect ideas, to learn and share skills, and to build on each other's experience. This year's theme, Empower, Collaborate and Transform, is a very apt one. We need to empower each other to think differently, to try new methods and new things, to question how and why things are done and the way they are, and to take risks. Measured risks, but risks all the same. I'm glad to see a number of events that resonate with this notion of empowerment, and our colleagues at the Department of Human Services are running a cross-agency workshop to help others learn about design. There are events on leadership and failure which will help us consider whether we can have different approaches that better enable innovation. And the events being run by the Australian Centre for Social Innovation on risk will help empower officers to better engage with risk when innovating. We also need to collaborate more. do it more often and in better ways, not only across agencies but with our partners in industry, academia and in the community. And I think co-design around policy and implementation and delivery is particularly important in this day and age. I'm looking forward to hearing what the workshops on effective cross-agency collaboration will find. I'm impressed by the collaboration from volunteers that has gone on into preparing, for example, GovHack, a national series of events to come up with new ways of using government data sets. Then there's the Enterprising Australians exhibition, which I'll be opening this week on the 10th of July at Questacon, at the Questacon Learning Centre at Deakin. And if people haven't been out there, I encourage people to go out there and Questacon to get your creative juices flowing. And you would have seen many press clips, not only just today, but also the past few weeks, about how we should be investing in our kids and people going through school, about developing the curious nature of the human being in terms of being innovative and encouraging more people to do science and technology and the like. And the exhibition at the Questacon Learning Centre in Deakin has been designed to highlight Australian innovation and inventiveness, and details how creative and innovative people have been contributing to Australia in terms of economic growth, employment opportunities and national culture. And I invite you to view the exhibition once it opens to the public. Finally, we also need to continue to transform what we do and how we do it. The Pattern Breaking and Beyond Summit, to be held tomorrow, aims to provide some insight into helping people get out of the patterns that are so easy to fall into. An additional resource is being added to the Public Sector Innovation Toolkit as part of Innovation Month. A module on horizon scanning will be published, a technique that can help us identify emerging trends and help us see how our organisations might need to transform. And my own department is having an internal workshop on disruptive innovations and better understanding the transformative impact that can have on industries that we deal with. And of course we need to continue the conversation with the wider community about innovation. There must always be the social permission for us to innovate. On this note, I'm chairing an event being run by the Institute of Public Administration, asking the question, is Australia ready for the public service to be truly innovative? And we've got a panel of both public sector and private sector people on that panel, so I encourage people to get along to that with my IPA hat on. There's a great program of events and activities with very real and practical applications, and once you see things working that are innovative, then I think that might also encourage you to do things a bit differently in your organisations. To mark the official opening of Innovation Month, I'd like to now share a video with you, and I had a look at it on Friday, and it showcases some of the examples of innovation happening across the APS and was produced especially for Innovation Month. And thank you to those agencies and staff that contributed, and I think there's some great things in there, and I think one of the things we need to do more of as an APS is absolutely tell the world that we are being innovative and we are listening and sometimes leading by example. So I might actually hand over to Rob Porteous, who might launch the video. Oh, Rob. Oh, another Rob. Sorry, Rob. I thought it was Rob Porteous. Repeat. Okay. Thank you. Whoops. I was just going to say, I think then we've got time for a few questions after that, so thanks. Sorry, Rob.
All right. I'm Rob Thomas. I'm the Communications Officer of the Public Sector Innovation Network, and I'd also like to thank everyone who was involved in this video and shared their story with us today. So let's get that rolling.
And I thought those lessons learned and thoughts were particularly interesting, and really it is up to us to make things work and have a really good go at things and a can-do attitude. So I really thank and congratulate everyone involved, and it's a great little video. Hopefully we'll get it on YouTube. Yes. Excellent. I might just open the floor to questions, and I might get Rob and Alex to help me answer those, and Rob Porteous if you'd like. No, I don't want to put you on the spot. Any questions, comments or ideas?
Some members of the audience are also the people in the video. So
I've just noticed.
You cited hierarchy as one of the biggest challenges to innovation. How do you think staff that aren't in the senior levels or senior executives within agencies can really have an influence on that?
I think it comes down to the culture, and I think we've got to encourage, as SES, space for new ideas to be brought forward. And yes, you can have suggestion boxes and the like, but I still don't think that's as effective as SES in particular, or work teams creating the space where you can actually come up with some good ideas and float them. And I'm reflecting on our graduate program. Actually, there's we put teams of people together around particular ideas to problem solve, and then they present to the executive, and out of some of that, then some of those policies are taken forward. So I encourage people to do that. I know when I was a Band 1, I used to have an afternoon called Fresh Fridays, and you'd sort of reflect on what we've done, reflect on what's coming up, but more importantly, I think, to give everyone an opportunity in the whole branch to come up with some ideas. So it was a chance for the whole group to get together, not worry about who was at what level, but all part of the same team and coming up with ideas. We know, I guess, as leaders in the public service, that the ideas aren't going to come from old crusty folk. They're going to come from younger people, and the next wave of reform is going to come from those that are down the hierarchy, I guess, in the public service. So I think you absolutely have to put on the executive board's agenda and departmental agendas what we're actually doing to embed the thinking and the workplace to encourage innovation. I don't know, you might have some ideas as well.
Michael Phillips, how do you strike a balance between not reinventing the wheel, reusing what other agencies perhaps have already done in the federal or state jurisdictions, and having some competition which generates potentially innovation?
Yeah, I think about this not only just in an organisational stewardship role, but also in an industry policy role for Australia. I mean, we have encouraged, just in domestic policy, encourage absolute competition amongst players, and yet in the global market, our strength absolutely comes in unity and operating as almost as one in terms of being part of a network of firms and businesses to do business internationally. So there is that balance to be struck. I think there's, across the service, I think there's a policy group that share policy ideas and ways of doing things. The Gov Share, hopefully, might be also an opportunity. And I think it comes down to, I think, sharing all of these ideas, but in a sense you don't know what you don't know. So you absolutely have to encourage those networks of people about not reinventing the wheel. I mean, we see it all the time, even within our own organisations, that, you know, we've got same areas in the one department working on the same thing. So we absolutely do need to encourage that collaboration. In terms of innovation, and one of the things that we put together each year is an innovation report, and one of the things that is absolutely sadly lacking in productivity and jobs and growth for Australia is that lack of collaboration between researchers and business, for example. So we absolutely have to get our house in order. Balancing that with the competitive spirit, you see it in the research community all the time. Who's going to be the first area to get a cure for cancer, for example? But also in that context, you're seeing universities working together here in Australia and overseas on that one thing. So that you do absolutely have to strike that balance, and I guess there's a competitive streak in all of us, and that absolutely has to be balanced with that collaboration. I think we're too small to not collaborate, and I think we've got to break down some of those competitive barriers. So I probably haven't answered your question, but I know how important is collaboration that we're articulating to the private sector and globally, but we've also got to do the same thing internally. You're not allowed to ask questions, Rob. Rob.
some great messages in that video, and I do hope it goes viral on YouTube. But if you go out into the community, and I guess this is perhaps a view that's shared by the government from time to time, the public sector is not seen as innovative, that we're supposed to follow the private sector, that they're the people who push and strive to be new. Do you have any thoughts on how we can cut through and actually change the very conservative image that the public service has, that we're risk averse, that we are resistant to change?
I think some of the things I touched on earlier was having principles around co-design and collaboration. So I think if we're doing things in concert with our stakeholders and clients and customers, and DHS is a good model in terms of how they absolutely do business with young people through their youth app and the like, and youth allowance. So I think we need to be looking at co-design opportunities. We encourage businesses and researchers to do it. So what are we doing ourselves in terms of co-design with the private sector? And I think it's easy to develop policy in a desktop environment, but it's much harder to do it in partnership with stakeholders and the people we're absolutely impacting on. And I know, having kids and grandkids, they certainly know how to find information and where to get it, and how to do business a lot more efficiently than we've done in the past. So I encourage looking at co-design opportunities. Obviously with that comes risk, particularly when you're looking at proposal that might go to cabinet or be part of budgets and the like, but there's still a hell of a lot of work we can do in the co-design environment. Thanks, Rob. So 1, 2, 3. One.
I guess just to build on that last question, one of the best sources that I guess I found, I'm fairly new to the public service in innovating, is actually getting people across different departments to actually work together, because it's a massive challenge.
Yeah.
How do we start to overcome some of those barriers of getting collaboration going across different parts of departments, let alone across different departments and across jurisdictions, without all of the, let's call it red tape?
And fiefdoms. Yeah. And that's something we always grapple with, and it doesn't matter at what level, is how do you actually encourage that collaboration. And I think it's both formal and informal networks. So I find, I guess personally, the best ways of looking at that collaboration is the informal networks. So like this, if you get to know people, oh, you're working on that, you're working on this, and that helps enormously. But developing those relationships with other agencies is absolutely particularly important. I think we've developed an innovation network as well, so we should all be encouraging people to look at that and make it work as well. And one of the reasons I'm on IPA too is to look at, okay, where can we work across the whole of the APS and with the private sector to improve our performance and our standing as well. So we've got IDCs and the like, and they happen on a very formal basis, but I think we absolutely have to look at different networks. And one of the things I'd like to see is more, and I spoke about the Canadians. In Canada, one of the boards in Canada absolutely invited young people to come along to board meetings, and so it wasn't just the executive at board meetings as well. So perhaps we can look at those sorts of opportunities as well. So I think it's both formal and informal levels. Yeah. Now there was 2, 3. Yep.
I wanted to, so in the speech you mentioned that productivity from industry's point of view is the driver of innovation, and I think it really encapsulates what the purpose of a lot of firms are, to maximise productivity. So I'd like to know what your comments might be on what the purpose of the public sector is and how that relates to innovation and how that relates to drivers of innovation. Sorry to slip this one in as well, but I was wondering about your comment about the issue of catch-up, and whether that's really that bad a thing, that if we take a more adaptive approach in mimicking, is that bad if the purpose of the public sector is not to be like industry?
A couple of things there. I think in terms of innovation is absolutely a driver for productivity. The evidence is very clear. And I think in terms of efficiencies in the public service, I think in the past we've looked at doing the same with less in terms of efficiency dividends and the like, although there's been absolutely some transformational changes around service delivery, absolutely meeting stakeholder requirements. But I think we've now got a good opportunity with the government's focus on smaller government to look at how can we do things a lot differently, and the pace of change in technology in particular is requiring us to look at different ways of doing business. And so productivity, and as we all go through our enterprise agreement negotiations, productivity is absolutely at the core of that. So what are we doing in terms of changing our business models, changing the way we do business? And IT can be a facilitator of that change, is absolutely critical to that. So I think some of the things that were highlighted on the video around smart forms and business apps and GovShare are all part of that way to improve productivity. In terms of your other comment about, I guess, adapting and to change, I think Australia has been shown externally to the APS as very much early adopters of technology, and I think when you look at smartphones and the like, we're definitely up there. And I think there's a place for the public service to provide leadership and lead the way, but absolutely there's also just the pace of technology is looking at how do we adapt to the new environment, particularly around, I think one of the things I'm looking at is management of information and data and making that more freely available, so then you can get researchers and others using it. So I think there's that balance. Of course, the public service is not going to be the leader in everything, and there are different levels of public service, but we should be having that balance. Yeah.
Yes, Secretary, you mentioned the government's deregulation agenda as a good context for us as policy officers to explore innovation, but you also talked about managing risk, and regulation can be an easy way to manage risk. I was just wondering if you had any ideas on how we as policy officers can help our policy officers and our ministers explore policy options with regulation as a last resort.
I think this is going to be a real balancing act, because I wanted to couch my comments in the context of the home insulation program where, of which I've been involved. So I've got that behind me, but also looking at how do we absolutely reduce the burdens on business and others in terms of deregulation. And I know as a policy officer myself, for a number of years, if there's a problem, you can easily fill it with a regulation or piece of legislation, and we've probably looked too much on those regulatory options rather than relying on self-responsibility or earned autonomy around regulatory requirements and the like. And for example, on the vocational education and training system, we're looking at, I think there's about 4,650 providers of training through the vocational education and training system. And yes, some of those aren't going to be fantastic, but should we be having a regulatory system built around those ones that are not likely to comply? Or should we be having a regulatory system where we reward and encourage good performers at the same time focusing on getting rid of the poor performers? So I think there is degrees of regulation, and obviously in our department we've got offshore petroleum regulation. Of course you need to look at OH&S, environmental and other regulation for those purposes, and it's just the way it's implemented too that we have to look at. And one of those examples in terms of reducing cost of business is providing one-stop shop, for example, around offshore regulation for environmental, well integrity and OH&S matters in one area. So there's different ways of looking at regulation and the regulation responses, and I think we do need to look at I guess industries and stakeholders taking on responsibility and us not over-managing and over-prescribing certain behaviours too. So I think it is a real balancing act, and we're grappling with it as a portfolio at the moment, is how far can you go, acknowledging there certainly are some things that we do need to protect through regulation. Yeah. Any other questions? Rob or Alex, do you need to say anything? Or?
Except that there's sandwiches and refreshments.
Okay, look, I really thank everyone. I know it's a pretty busy time for us all at the moment, and thank you for all those that participated in making the video, and thank you for being innovative and turning up today, and hopefully we can get the word out there. So thank you very much.